Today we're looking at a new plugin from Plugin Alliance and SPL Machine Head. Let's get started. Alright, so here it is, SPL Machine Head. Now, originally back in 1997, SPL developed a digital tape saturation emulation technology in analog hardware. It was basically an analog box, 19-inch rack mount unit with some DSP processing cores in there, and they used that to capture all of the desirable qualities of analog tape with none of the drawbacks, none of the maintenance, none of the torque, crosstalk, or the noise, all of the stuff we don't like about tape, but all the stuff we do like about tape in one box. And what's really cool about this is it was always an all-digital device, so even though it was an analog unit, the box itself was digital. It took its input via SPDIF or ASEBU, and it was a digital signal in, digital signal out, digitally processed. So what they've done is they've brought back the original designers and they've captured the original code and put in a plugin. So what you've got is an exacting one-to-one of the original that's gained a lot of it's kind of a cult following, really. It's got high praise for the sound quality. It's highly desirable. An analog box now would cost you more than $30,000 if you can even get one, and we have it here in a plugin. What's cool about this as well is they've actually done two versions. So they've got the original code here and what they call an ultimate version, which has a few more features that we can go through and a slightly higher sound quality. They've done a higher resolution version as if they were going to redesign the machine head for today, for 2025. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've stuck it across a few things in this session here. I've got one on my kick drum, one on my snare, one on my bass guitar, the guitars, and the classic spot on the mix bus. So I'm going to go through some of these features here first. So the machine head, we've got an input gain, obviously allows us to either increase or decrease the amount of input coming into the plugin, and this is our input meter just here. We've got a drive amount, and then the drive amount is literally the amount of analog sort of saturation or the drive into the tape that we're trying to achieve. We've got a high frequency adjust, which is a shelf. I'm going to have to consult the manual in a minute to find out exactly where that shelf is, but it's a high shelf or maybe even a high bell that adds kind of that like airy top end. Sometimes when you hit tape really hard, rounds off some of those high frequencies. The high frequency adjust will enable you to put that back. And we've got lastly an output trim for controlling the output, making sure we're not just fooling ourselves with loudness. The next button here, the high tape speed. If you look over at the meter in here, you can see when it's disengaged, we're at 15 inches per second, or 30. So 15 would be slower the tape goes through the machine, the more saturation, the more color you get. 30 inches per second is less, it's going to be less colored, so more kind of high fidelity, I guess you could say. We've got a bunch of different options here. We could have up to 4 different presets. It remembers, if I go and change parameters here and then go back, it's going to remember that. So we can flick through some options. We've got bypass, on and off, or active, in and out. That's it for the machine head, the original version. Clicking over to the ultimate version, we've got the same input gain. Output gain's been moved over here. What we've got instead here is a high frequency adjust and a low frequency adjust, so we can actually push in some low frequencies or attenuate some low frequencies if that's what we want. Sometimes tape is known for boosting low frequencies and giving too much. If it gives too much, we can counteract that. I'm going to jump into the manual here just to get a clearer indication on exactly what the shelf is doing. So here we go, high frequency adjust here. It adjusts the amount of high frequency. The control of the original version is in 6 dB steps, max 6 dB positive or negative, and it is in fact it doesn't say, the higher you saturate real tape and the more high frequency damping will take place. Machine head, you can put that high frequency back. Same with the low frequencies. but it doesn't say exactly what it is. I do believe that it's a bell curve. Don't hold me to that. But rather than reading all about this, I figure we'll just hear it in action. So what I've got for you here, as I said, is a session with a few of them across the mix. I've already been playing with this and I've come up with some presets that I quite like. So I'm actually just going to go through each kind of thing, like the kick, the snare, the bass, and then pull it all together and then do a quick sort of A-B on and off. Now, why do we even care? Why do we want tape? What's the point? Saturation, like, can't we just do it with anything? You can. But the nice thing about tape saturation is it's got kind of a musical compression quality to it, where it sort of just squashes the transients in a musical and rather transparent way, increasing perceived loudness, adding harmonics, which is like richly enhancing the complexity of the sound, making it sound fuller and more forward in the mix, or fuller in general, and overall, you know, enhancing our perception of that sound. So let's go to our kick drum here. We'll solo up a little bit and I'll bring the machine head up. It's in its default state right now, and I'm gonna just turn it on and I'm gonna tweak in some parameters and we'll do a back and forward. I'm always watching this meter down here, because what I'm going to be making sure is that I balance this output gain to ensure that we're not peaking higher than we were without this. That way we know what we're hearing is the processing, not just being fooled by loudness. So here's our kick drum. So just by itself, there's a small difference. It's quite subtle, but let's start mucking here with the drive and then see where we can get to with the high frequency adjust. It's very basic. It's not going to take long to dial it in. There's only really 4-5 main controls. So here we go. Okay, let's bypass this and check out where we're peaking at here. 3.8, cool. Let's engage. More. Okay, pretty much the same peak level. Let's just do a quick bypass off and then on, or I'll leave it on and I'll bypass it off so you can hear the difference that just the drive and a little bit of high frequency is adding. So here's with it. So you can really hear that perceived loudness and the fullness of that sound that this unit's adding with no extra volume. Let's click across to the ultimate version and we'll see what we can do with this low frequency adjust as well. We'll still have to manage the output gain, but we'll try that with trying the low frequency. We've added some high. Let's try some low. So already in those two moves, we're not any louder, but we've got perception that is much louder. It feels much bigger and fuller. We've got more low frequency and more top end clarity and a slightly controlled feel because of the compression and natural tape compression, all just in those few moves. Let's move on. Let's go to the snare next and see what we can get done here. So again, machine head. Let's go down, see what our snare's peaking at. Okay, 5.6, so that's where we've got to be. I've already dialed this in a little bit. In fact, this is now quiet, so what I've added is 8.2 on the drive. We're on the slowest tape speed, a little bit of high frequency, and I've backed off the output gain. I'm going to bypass in and out, and we'll hear the difference. So here's with. And I mean, that's quite drastic. Again, we've got perceived loudness, we've got fullness, we've got more snap, more of everything, just with this one tape emulation plugin. I'm just going to leave it in sort of playing in a loop, and I'm going to flick in and out of Ultimate and Original just so you can hear the difference back to back of what that does. The Ultimate one for me usually sounds a little bit cleaner and a little bit more open, a little bit more hi-fi. Sometimes that's what you want, sometimes it isn't. So let's go back forward and have a listen. Here on the snare, for me, there's a subtle difference. It's not making a huge difference. I actually like how the original version sounds. I'm going to keep moving on down the line now to the bass guitar. This, for me, is really doing a nice thing. With bass, it's hard to get it to cut through little speaker systems and to feel forward and full in the mix. The way you do that is with saturation. This particular plugin, it's just replaced about 3 plugins that I would normally use for this, and it does it effortlessly, and it's better sounding than it was before with those other 3 plugins. So I'm going to do an A-B before and after, or like with and without. Sorry, I'll start with, because I've already dialed in these settings. In fact, I've got myself a little preset that I quite like as a starting point. So here's with the Machine Head on bass. Really rich, deep, it extends. That low end extension is massive, and we're adding a tiny bit of low frequency boost, but not much. It's really adding some of that weight and heft that we like about tape. I'll go quick in and out now for you, so with and without. It's the low frequency extension for me. It really sits down. I can feel it coming out of the sub more. It's kind of added that extra kind of bottom octave that was missing, and it's lifted the top harmonic, so it sort of pops out the speakers a bit more. It is subtle at the top end, but it's definitely more present and more in your face. So far, you know, every source we've put it on it's made it sound good. It's not too over the top, I don't think. You know, obviously you can adjust the drive level to taste and sort of make decisions about that, but here's with our guitars. I've already dialed in a rough setting. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to flick back between the two because they are quite different sounding. But what we can see is I've added quite a bit of drive, I've compensated on the output, and I've left the high-low frequency alone. So here it is with the Machine Head on Ultimate version. And now I'm going to go to the original, and then I'll do an A-B between. Just for reference, here it is with no Machine Head. So to me, you can hear that it's adding again that richness and fullness that we like about saturation, and a lot of that's coming from the harmonics that are being added by this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave it engaged, and I'm just going to go back and forth between these so you can hear the difference, and then we'll do a whole mix one. So here's the original version. What I really like about the Ultimate version on this is the smoothness in the highs. It's less fizzy. It's kind of taming that top end in a really musical way while still bringing it forward and in your face like the original version is doing. And this is where this iteration, the plugin instead of the hardware, is really powerful, because you've got lots of them if you want. But you've also got these 2 different versions that are quite uniquely sort of different, and you can use them sparingly where you think they are going to be most useful, and mix them in with your other saturation tools that you've got, so you get a real kind of sense of depth and separation, because you can create different sounds and different timbres with different tools. Lastly, let's go again to the mix bus. I've got a mix bus preset that I set up here. Little bit back on the output, tiny bit of drive, and actually 30 inches per second on the tape speed. And again, I like the original version here, so what I'm going to do, start with it on, and then I'm just going to use this button here to bypass it in and out, because you can do that here too. So there are many ways to bypass it. You've got the original way in Pro Tools, you've got the Plugin Alliance way here, and you've got the on-off button down here too. So you can do it in a bunch of ways. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything, and so that we can turn them all on and all off all at the same time and get a sense of what this is doing across our whole mix. So here's our mix bus on and off. So I'll start with it on and I'll turn it off. For me, it's adding quite a lot of clarity. Listen to the snare as it sort of pops out. I mean, bearing in mind this is an unmixed track. We've got some very rudimentary compression, some very kind of quick EQ as a demonstration, and just rough levels. There's not really anything major going on here. So, you know, these sorts of things are going to really highlight the enhancements further still as a whole mix starts to come together, because it will really sort of work together to glue all of your decisions together. I'm going to just actually knock it down to the slowest tape speed so we get a bit more color, and we'll see what difference that makes as well. So here's with and without. I love the way this thing adds perceived loudness and just kind of wakes up the drums and seems to glue everything together in a really musical way. It's simple, it's straightforward. There are very few controls. Put it on and it just sounds good. What I'm going to do now as a final sort of wrap up is I'm going to do a before and after, and then give you my final thoughts, and that'll be that. So here we are, here's everything all together. We'll start with it on and then we'll turn it off. So keep your eye on this plugin up here for when they all go blue, you'll know they're off, and I'll do something on screen to show that as well. I don't think I really even need to say anything about that. It speaks for itself. I mean, we know we've gone through and we've level matched all of these, so we're not being fooled by loudness. What we're hearing is a perceived loudness increase, and that comes from the compression, the natural tape compression, the additional harmonics, enriching the sound, and yet adding that perceived loudness. And what it does for all of these tracks is it brings the whole thing to life. It wakes it up. It makes it feel like it's a living thing, and it's pretty cool. So my opinion on the SPL Machine Head is that it's a winner. I'm no stranger, like many of you I'm sure, to having way too many plugins, and when this one came out I was like, look, I'll try it, and whilst it says 11 days left, I did actually buy this one. It just hasn't ticked over yet. It's, in my opinion, it's well worth having. It's a great tool for your arsenal, and it's not a magic box. It's not going to change the game for you. It's not going to be like, oh, suddenly I can mix now because I've got this. No. But what it is going to do is it's going to help you craft the sound quickly and without thinking. And that's what we loved about analog, or what I still love about analog, is it's quick, it's intuitive, and it just sounds good. You reach out, you twist some controls, and you know, things start happening. And this gives me that feeling, and because of the one-to-one code, you know, it gives you exactly what that box sounded like. Not kind of like it, sort of like it. It's one-to-one. The code was brought across from the old Windows system or the Linux system or whatever they used to code it on back in the day on those Motorola chips they used, to the modern day, and with some enhancements. So, you know, try it for yourself. Jump across to the Plugin Alliance website. You can get 14-day trial for free. Stick it on a bunch of your mixes and see what you think for yourself. Have fun mixing.